Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Roswell, New Mexico. Great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The season premieres typically are kind of like their setup episodes. Obviously, it's right, you got to deal in the aftermath of typically it's you're dealing in the aftermath of the previous season, and now it's just kind of them trying to adjust to normal life, and this is kind of picking up some of those storylines. I think they were saying it's basically been 6 months. Max and Liz have moved in together. The fact of the matter is Max is planning to propose to Liz, and I love that Liz's dad is kind of yeah, so you do anything to hurt my daughter, kind of the machete's right there, so... And so Max, which we also find out he's the interim sheriff, so I guess it's right till they find a more permanent one, or maybe a new election is held. He's the one kind of. You never actually get a clearance or just how many deputies. Well, one of the deputies died last season, but I was I don't think you never get a clear example of tale of how many deputies actually are in this town other than Max. Once again, the other one died. Jones killed the other one last season. But he's working this robbery case with Cam, who's now, with the FBI. She immediately thinks it's alien related, but Max doesn't. And I think that kind of plays into, well, for one, Max, we find out pretty quick, later on, that he's not flexing his muscles, his alien muscles. He hasn't really been using his powers because he's, because even Liz wants the whole, normal girl from Roswell situation going on without all the extra craziness after everything that they've been through. Especially her and Max being in a good place. It's she doesn't want to kind of, I think, jump the shark with that. Doesn't want to take the chance that things could kind of enjoying the peace while it lasts and enjoy all of that's kind of been brought about because of it. So, and I think because of that, Max wanting to just have a normal life, just kind of forget about the extraterrestrial stuff for a while. I think because later on when the aliens ended up getting away, they lifted the car and Max could barely keep it up because he hasn't been flexing those muscles at all. Might be time to start, flexing said muscles again, and just because he really hasn't been pushing with all the... Because, it seems like the others at least, Isabel didn't even use her powers at all this episode, but we know Michael always keeps his, ready to go. Obviously, Dallas has been practicing more of his abilities, so it seems like Max, to what we know, like I said, I get the feeling Isabel's probably been still flexing hers. Even Maria's still been using her her powers as probably in ancillary things of just kind of reading people's fortunes here and there, so it's nothing too big, but still flexing her muscles with her powers as well. So. And it's so interesting because Cam had made this whole point to Max about she wants Max, she's happy for Max. It's I like Liz, but I love you more. And I love Max being oh, you sure this isn't about it? She's shut up, it's not because of our history and stuff. It's no, I care deeply for you, but at the end of the day, I want you to be getting married basically for the right reasons, that it's the right time, and you're not trying to use that as kind of almost an escape from all the other stuff, the alien stuff. And it's to some extent I think he could have been, because he wasn't, like I said, really diving into the alien stuff, because I guess it's been such a big part of their lives for so long. It's been kind of this massive part of their lives, this obsession in their lives, especially I think when it comes to Liz, that is when you have the opportunity to kind of take a step back. I think Liz in particular, wanting to take a step back because of how driven she's been about all this alien related stuff. So both of them are both trying to figure out exactly what they want. Obviously they love each other, but it's are we making the right moves, essentially? And I think that's a big conversation all around. We haven't got all the ins and outs of what's up with Dallas's life. We just, he's there kind of helping everyone else, Michael and Maria. Obviously, we see him and Maria have obviously gotten closer, but him and Michael having that whole competition because Michael's handing the trailer over to Dallas. But Michael can't let that go because that's been his baby, it's been his home, it's that's always been his obsession. And so now he's kind of having to let that go because he's moving in with Alex. And it's just, you could tell he's not used to it because Michael is used to, he's lived with Sanders and stuff, but it's they've kind of kept their own space in that territory. So it's he's always been on his own. So because he's also scared. He always feels like he's always messing things up, especially with Alex. There's always been ups and downs to everything that they've always been through. So they're together, they're not together. And I think for him, it scared him because he's like, right, this is something I do love Alex. I care about Alex. And what if I end up messing this up? What if I ruin this? Michael has a tendency to just kind of get inside his head and just believe that he's automatically going to ruin everything. He even talks with, I believe it's Max later, that he talks about, like, right, I remember when I tried to live with you guys when we were younger, I was like a feral animal. It's like, it's just not me. Like, what if I ruin everything? But Max is like, at the end of the day, the only person who can know what's right for you is you, which once again kind of flows into the conversation about him and Liz as well. Going back to Max really quickly, I felt so bad, like when he was about to pop the question, and then like someone else in the area popped the question too. I'm like, oh, it kind of takes a little bit away from your popping of the question. It's like, right, that kind of sucked. It kind of sucked all the momentum out of it. But I think we'll find out later on, Liz like had her inklings. That was the biggest, like, oh my God, he's about to pop the questions. Everything that he was saying, the location, even saying like, oh, this place is so, like, there's so many memories here. So it was like, she knew what he was about to do. But once again, as she talks about later on, she's waiting for the other shoe to drop, because it's like, that's always something that's been a part of their lives for the past couple years, is that how can we just ride off into the sunset when I know the other shoe is going to drop and we need to be prepared for whatever's to come. But it's like, I do want to get married. Like, would you ask me at the right time? Like, I will say yes, which, it's not like she's saying no, but I'm just like, right now is not the right time. So, but they're going to find their way through everything. So, I mean, it's kind of sad, but also, like, there is a beautiful silver lining to it. It's not like everything's like, oh man, it's ruined. Or it's like, no, everything's good. I felt so bad for Michael when he accidentally ended up breaking that model thing that, Alex worked on with his mom, and especially the sentimental representation, what it is, that basically when he was struggling to figure out who he was, that him and his mom built that so he could basically build his perfect Roswell, so he could feel like he fit in, like everything was okay. And Michael kind of destroyed it, and he couldn't fix it, and it was to him, it's like, it's a sign, it's a literal physical manifestation of his worries and concerns about, because everyone keeps telling him too that it's just nerves. But at the end of the day, like, I want to say it was Dallas that was like, right, Alex, you are what's most important to Alex. So don't take this opportunity. Don't run away, because if you run away, it's going to ruin everything. And you probably, because if you run away now, like, there's probably no repairing any of that. So like, don't run away. Stick it out. Talk to Alex, like, and he brings up his concerns with Alex, but Alex is sure that no matter what, it's like, right, this thing, that those models aren't, he doesn't need them anymore. Like the little gazebo that he had built with his mom. He's like, I don't need that anymore. I don't need to kind of make up some perfect Roswell or something like that in my head. Like, I've got you here, and I can make this life what I want it to be, so no longer just fantasizing about it. So I thought that was kind of beautiful. Obviously, Alex and Kyle still working at Deep Sky with Eduardo, who has them working on different projects. I think Kyle was looking into cicada movements and stuff, and there was like weather balloon stuff that Alex was looking into, because Eduardo was getting the inkling like something's off. And he's saying that basically the way the atmosphere, like everything's, the weather and everything's been acting recently, he's like, it's very reflective of like 1947 after the aliens landed in Roswell. So you're like, okay, and we obviously know there are at this point other aliens. I wasn't expecting it, but I guess it makes sense. Another triad, which, if I'm not mistaken, one of those actors is from the originals. He was one of the antagonists from season 3. He ended up kind of becoming like the ultimate big bad to some extent, but then like Marcel kind of took that from him to some extent. What was his character name? Was it Lucius or Lucian or something like that? I believe that's him. So the terminology triad getting used associated with him is kind of funny in the long run because of that. But nevertheless, interesting timing too, because who else is also associated with that would be Rebecca Breeze, because that was also the season obviously with Tristan and Aurora. So timing's interesting in that regard. Well, I mean, I guess I have to think about it even deeper because Riley Vocal is in this too. You know, as returning as Cam, so it's like right. She was just in a few episodes back on Legacy, so she's made some pop-ins this season. So you have the whole situation. Also, I don't think we got any Rosa updates in this episode, did we? We heard about Gregory being away at college. I don't think we heard about Rosa at all. I'm sure, I'm sure she's going to be in this season, but it's like, I don't think we got any, like, talk about her at all this episode, but I could be mistaken. I didn't talk about it with Maria, but she got her final injection this episode where they're basically stopping the degeneration of her brain, which part of me was wondering whether or not that was going to, I mean, they still don't know, like, right, everything seems copacetic, everything seems good, so part of me was wondering, like, because later on she was like, oh, my powers seem a little off, like, because she was like, right, she couldn't really read people's fortunes, so I was like, oh, I wonder, and Dallas was saying, like, oh, sometimes medications, when you're first taking new medications, it kind of takes you, like, off, and I'm wondering, is that what that's going to almost be like, oh, like, Maria's powers are going to be dulled for a bit because of this, so this was supposed to be the last shot, but what if it kind of like has a lasting effect, or it kind of takes her out of the equation for a bit, that maybe this is the beginning of a larger problem this season because she won't have access to her powers. I don't know, we'll see. Then there's the whole Kyle situation where he's basically burying himself in work because like everyone's trying to adjust to like a normal life, but it's hard to just adjust to a normal life after everything. And I mean, Kyle, I was about to call him Michael, because it's his real name, but Kyle ends up, I mean, he has extra reason to kind of be avoiding everyone and just not having much of a life because of the whole, Isabel thing, like, super having a massive crush on her, but it's like, right, she's in a relationship with Nasta, and it's like, you don't want to say anything, especially that awkward conversation later on when it's like, okay, like, tell someone the truth, like, truth will set you free, and Kyle's just kind of like, ha 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 ha, it's like, yeah, and because it's like, right, that's gonna, the longer you sit on the truth, the worse things are gonna be, and it's like, I guess it does make sense, because, like, the longer he holds on to that, the more Isabel and Anasta are like going deeper and deeper into their relationship, and eventually that's going to make it harder and harder for you to tell the truth, and that's just going to be sitting on you the entire time, which is kind of heartbreaking. I think everyone's been in that situation where like, oh, cool, you have feelings for someone that's already in a relationship, and you don't want to screw things up because you do care about them. It's just like, oh, complicated feelings. So what does he do immediately later on? He goes back to work and starts working on Jones's body. Well, he's about to, but he doesn't get started yet. But because his uncle stops him and is like, man, I thought you were supposed to go out, just live your life. Because when you're just inside of a lab all the time, you lose perspective. I want you to have perspective. I want you to live your life and not just be completely consumed by this, because the Valentis can't have kind of gotten all consumed by this. I mean, obviously in the long run, it's that family's kind of got dragged through the mud with this whole situation. So wanting him to kind of just live his life, kind of taking a step back from it, the giving him perspective on everything is kind of a nice bonus on it too. So we'll see where that goes. That was one of those things I definitely was thinking about going into this season. Like, where's the whole Isabel and Kyle thing? You hope this going to work out, but once again, it's that thing of like, because that means hoping they get together means hoping Isabel's other relationship fizzles and sizzles out. It's kind of, so that's kind of like always like the drawback of that. You're like, right, I want you to do together, but I also don't want your current relationship to blow up. And it's like, yeah, because you're like, Anasa said like, oh, I love you, and Isabel was reluctant to say it back just because it's like, right, there's so much the whole aspect of, right, do I tell her I'm an alien, even to the point that at the party they were throwing them like, hey, it's the joke, because obviously we all are in the know, oh, Anasta's coming over, she wouldn't get the inside joke of all this alien stuff, so. But Isabel was ready to tell her at the end of the episode. But once again, it's just, I think all across the board, just timing wasn't right. I mean, it doesn't help that you have the triads doing their own thing. They were, at first it was like, right, it seemed like they were robbing a bank, but maybe they were just robbing safety deposit boxes or something. Well, because, yeah, they popped a whole bunch of safety deposit boxes. So they probably want to make it seem like, oh, man, like all the money and jewelry and stuff is what they were after. But it seemed like they found some vials. And it seems to be part of their plan. We don't know what it is that they're doing, but the end result ends up being them like almost like some like purple aurora in the sky, and then like it seemed like it was raining, and I was almost like, it looked like at certain points, I don't know if it's just the lighting from like the sky or whatever, but some of the rain looked, multicolored, like, like their ship and stuff like that, or the sword, like it looked kind of like that. And so I was wondering, like, oh, is that regular rain, or is that going to be something to that rain? But in some places, it just looked like regular rain. But then there's also, like, meteors, comets, or whatever crashing down, too. So it's like, what is the end result here? Are we on some, like, Kryptonians on Earth thing of, oh, we're going to terraform this planet? I don't think that was part of Jones' plan or anything like that. Because it's like, well, what are they up to? Are they the only triad here on the planet? Like, are they the only ones who got Jones? Or, I mean, maybe they're going to, like, set the stage for all that to kind of find its way to Earth. What they're up to is still unclear. Well, they said something at the very end. Once again, I'm blanking on a lot of stuff on what they necessarily want. I'm assuming it's just continuing what Jones wanted. And I don't know if they, well, because that one from the end of season 3 was looking for Liz specifically. So it's probably, once again, because Liz is the one who knows, she's the one that's got the mind for all of this, like, alien stuff. Like, so she's always going to be the key factor in all of this. But I don't know if Jones told them about, Dallas or Max or Isabel or Michael. I mean, it's like, right, his own son's here on this planet and that whole thing. So it might not have gotten to that, or his clone. They might be able to use that to their advantage because they might not know that Jones is dead. So there might be identical enough that maybe they, that might even be a thing where Max is going to have to play up the Jones role just to kind of catch them off guard, to find out what they're up to. Because they might not, they might not know about Max's existence at all, or if they do, they can be like, still be like, oh yeah, like this dead body here, yeah, that's not Jones, that's Max. I'm Jones. I took over Max's body. That's my old body that's dead. Ha 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 ha. Maybe that's the way the hell of that. We'll see. I definitely feel like that could lend itself nicely to some subterfuge, but we'll see whether they'd be able to see through that or not. Because the thing is, the moment they ran into Max, but they probably didn't get a good enough look at him at the time, so maybe that's not an issue. Maybe that won't be an issue. It does seem like one of the triads, she doesn't seem too all okay with this. Like, the other two seem like they're a lot more on board with this. She seems reluctant. I just thought that was interesting. Maybe she'll be like, not weaker link, but just the one that's had the biggest reluctance of doing whatever it is that they're doing, whatever they've got planned. Like, all the, because I thought it was also interesting too, because Dallas had said it himself that he's able to, like, he could tell things were kind of off in the atmosphere because he's got a better control of water and stuff. And usually, Maria's like, oh, I'm pretty good at, like, knowing, like, if it's going to rain, and he knew ahead of time. But obviously there's extenuating circumstances for it, and he could tell, like, in the atmosphere, like, certain things were changing. So I'm curious to see where this all ends up taking us this season. I've caught in previews here and there. I have no idea what to fully expect from this season. Once again, even if I did watch this trailer, most CW stuff, the trailer usually covers, like, the first, maybe, bits and pieces to later parts of the season, but it's typically, like, maybe the first and or second episode at best, so. Obviously, we got the sad news that Roswell, New Mexico, once again, amongst a lot of shows I've talked about this recently, were canceled. So this is inadvertently the final season. Once again, that decision came out, like, back in March? Or was that, might have been March or May when that news dropped. I think it might have just been last month, maybe. So I don't know if they've had enough time to, like, change anything. So I don't think they weren't going into, I'm assuming they weren't going into this season. Because I think nothing was, like, going like, oh, this is going to be the final season. Everything was just kind of like, oh, this is the 4th season. And it inadvertently became the final season. So I get the feeling like things are probably going to end on a cliffhanger. Once again, I don't know what production stuff is like. I don't know if they have time to squeeze in and change and edit some stuff to be like, we're going to have a more definitive ending because we now know that this is the end. But either way, I'm along for the ride. I'm excited to see where everything goes. Hopefully no one dies this season. Hopefully everything works out. Hopefully everyone gets their happy endings, especially with the whole aspect, because it seems like timing is going to be a big part of this season of like, right, when is the right time? It always feels like it's the wrong time. We never find that right timing. So I think that, once again, is going to be a main theme across everyone's relationships and everyone's dynamics this season. So I think that's going to be really interesting to dive into. But I'm excited to have Roswell back, and I'm excited to see where this season ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.